What's going on, everybody? As You Eat It, live from Richmond, Virginia, my home away from home. And on this episode, I'm gonna show you some of the hot spots that I go to, some of the dishes that I order, and then we're gonna go into the kitchen and I'm gonna put a spin on them. So sit back, relax, enjoy the ride. We're gonna do it up RVA style. Let's go. It's great to be back in my home kitchen. I can't think of a better tribute to the city of Richmond and all the great food I had than to take my favorite dishes and your favorite dishes, the dishes you guys voted for on my Instagram poll, and putting my spin on it. That's why on this episode of As You Eat It, we're taking the bison burger from Southern Railway Tap House and the pork belly tostones from Casa del Barco and putting them together to create a buffalo bacon ragu on top of a plantain flatbread with a cilantro cotija peppercorn crema. We're not done yet. On the side, we're gonna do a chow chow. And if you guys don't know what a chow chow is, I'll show you in a little bit. Mine's a little non-traditional, has a little ancho and some okra in there, but still really delicious. And for dessert, a little riff on Shindig's famous banana pudding. I'm doing a frozen banana pudding sundae with a few twists in there. But you know the rules. We gotta start with dessert first. In your blender jar, combine 7 previously frozen and thawed bananas with a teaspoon of lemon juice, 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar, half a cup of light corn syrup, and a teaspoon of vanilla before giving it a buzz. It's gonna take a second, but it's gonna loosen up for you. Then stream in your half and half, 3 cups in total, nice and slow and steady. Once it's thoroughly combined, turn out into a container, like so. I'm using a pitcher. Wrap in plastic and chill thoroughly. Next up, vanilla wafer crumble. Combine 3 cups of ground vanilla wafers with half a stick of melted butter and stir to combine. Should look like wet sand. Then press it out into a baking tray and bake at 350 degrees for 10 to 15 minutes or until golden brown. Then let cool. Time to churn the ice cream. Make sure your machine is running and your bowl is cold before you pour in your chilled ice cream base. Churn according to manufacturer's instructions. Mine takes about 20 minutes. Time to assemble a layer of vanilla crumble, a nice generous dollop of our banana soft serve. Smooth it out there with a butter knife, nice and even, before going in with our secret ingredient, chocolate toffee bits. Yum, nice little surprise there. Another layer of the vanilla crumble, like so. Another layer of the chocolate toffee. Another generous dollop of our banana soft serve and spread it out again. Doesn't need to be perfect. We're going to put a nice quenelle of whipped cream on top. Cover in plastic, nice and tight, and stash it in your freezer until they're set. Maybe an hour or 2. While we're waiting for our frozen banana pudding to set up, let's make the cilantro cotija peppercorn crema. In your blender jar, combine 1 bunch of cilantro with 8 ounces of sour cream or Mexican crema or creme fraiche. Then add in 2 tablespoons of light mayonnaise, or full fat if you have it is fine. Next up, 5 ounces of cotija cheese, kind of like the Mexican feta. Half a cup of apple cider vinegar goes in to round everything out. Then pepper medley to taste. Coarser the better, guys. And a pinch of salt. Not too much since we have the cheese. And blend it on up. Time to taste and adjust. Is it too salty? Is it too thick? Does it need more cilantro? What do you think? All right, we're good. Let's pour it in our glass container here. This crema tastes delicious right now, but if we let it sit for a few hours in the fridge while we prepare the rest of our meal, it's gonna get even better as those flavors develop. So while it's in the fridge, we're going to make what's known as a chow chow. Now I know what you're thinking. What's a chow chow? It sounds like something a dog would eat. Nope, that's not the case. A chow chow is a traditional Southern style vegetable relish very vinegary, very bright. My version, not so traditional. Here's how we're gonna make it. Trim and roughly chop 2 small tomatillos. Traditionally, chow chow is green tomato based, but today we're going to use a combination of tomatillos and 1 plum tomato. Cut the ends off the tomato, stand it upright, cut in half, use your bear claw to cut in quarters, and roughly chop. Next up, 2 small orange bell peppers. We're gonna cut away from the seed pod there, and then into strips, and then using your sawing motion here into smaller pieces. Very nice, into the bowl. Same thing with our red bell pepper, guys. Cut away from the seed pod. All the seeds will stay with the pod, roughly chopped. Cut the core off of your cabbage here. We're only going to use half of this green cabbage. Next up, planks. Cut the sticks. And roughly chop. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's going in the pot, guys, and it's going to cook down. Next up, 1 Vidalia sweet onion, also roughly chopped. Very nice technique there. And lastly, okra. I'm using 1 cup of frozen, but you can use fresh as well. Put your tea kettle on to boil while we deal with the chilies. We're going to be using 3 ancho chilies today. Anchos are dried poblanos and will give a slightly spicy, fruity, almost raisiny quality to this chow chow. Rehydrate in the boiling water, and when they're cool enough to touch, take the stem and seeds out, ripping it open like so, and then taking the back of your knife and taking out the seeds before chopping up the flesh roughly. For your chow chow liquid, add a 1/4 cup of water, 1/2 cup of apple cider vinegar, 2 generous pinches of kosher salt, and 1 teaspoon of granulated sugar to your pot, before adding 1 teaspoon each of ground mustard, ground ginger, ground turmeric, and crushed red pepper flakes for some spice. Bring to a boil, stirring to dissolve the spices. Add your vegetable and chili mixture and cook down for 15 to 20 minutes, stirring constantly before turning out into storage containers and refrigerating. I'm using 3 plastic deli containers today, but you can certainly use glass as well. When initially conceptualizing this dish, I was trying to figure out a way how to use the plantain in a new and interesting way. The original recipe was a tostone, so it was a fried and flattened plantain served like a chip that you would, put your pork belly on, the other, condiments. But I wanted to do something a little bit different. I thought about mango, which is mashed plantains, but that doesn't bring a lot of texture to the party. Then I thought of mofongo, which is the fried and then mashed plantains with the garlic and the cumin, chicharron, and which would have been good, but still not quite what I was thinking. And then it came to me. The green plantains are pretty starchy, even starchier than potatoes. If we boil them down, kind of mash them up and add some flavoring to it, we can probably use the mofongo flavor, so the garlic and the cumin. That can make a pretty good flatbread dough. Check it out. Trim and peel 3 green plantains. To do so, cut the ends off the plantains, working cleanly there, throw the ends in the garbage, then make a deep incision on both sides. Plantains have a very thick, rubbery skin, and you want to make sure you get down deep in there so you can peel it off cleanly. Work carefully when bringing the knife towards you. Next up, with your thumb and forefinger, get underneath that skin and start peeling. It's going to be a little bit of a chore since they are on the starchy side, but that's okay. Some of the pieces might break off, but make sure you get the pieces of skin off since they are not edible. Almost there. Okay, now we're ready to cut. Cut into 3/4 to 1 inch pieces. The smaller you chop them, the faster they'll boil, which is a plus. Bring to a boil, making sure to salt your water, guys. Once they're tender, transfer them to your work bowl using your spider strainer. You could go directly into your food processor, but I like to pre-mash first. Add in 3 cloves of garlic, pepper medley to taste, 1/2 teaspoon of smoky cumin, gives a nice little depth there, a generous pinch of kosher salt, a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, and get mashing. If it's a little tough for you, thin it out with a little bit of half and half or milk. Transfer the contents of the bowl to the work bowl of your food processor before adding in 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour. I'm using it by the tablespoon, so start with 4 tablespoons and work upwards to 8. Add in half a cup of half and half and work until a soft dough forms. Turn it out onto a floured surface and start kneading. Once the dough stops sticking to your hands, guys, you know it's ready to go. Take your bench scraper and cut it in half and form into balls. Use your cupped palm to really roll it around and shape it into a ball before wrapping in plastic and chilling for a minimum of 2 hours. Set your oven to 400 degrees. Take out your rested dough and place on your floured surface again, making sure to flour both sides. Take your bench scraper, cut into quarters, and then shape into balls again before patting out into flatbread forms. Maybe about ½ an inch or so if you're going to twist my arm on that. I didn't measure. You could use a rolling pin if you like. Brush with egg wash, like so. Bake your flatbreads for 20 to 30 minutes and then remove to a cooling rack. While we're waiting for that, let's make the buffalo bacon ragu. Add 8 ounces, that's ½ a pound of bacon, to the work bowl of your food processor and work in pulses to grind down the bacon until it's the same texture as the buffalo. Buffalo's naturally lean, so we're supplementing it with the fat from the bacon. Please work carefully when taking it out of the work bowl. Add in the buffalo, that's 12 ounces, but you can certainly use ground beef if you like. Add in a tablespoon of onion powder, a tablespoon of garlic powder, and pepper medley to taste. No salt, guys. We have the bacon, we don't need the salt. So glove it up and let's mix it up. We want to make sure that that buffalo's broken up and that the bacon and the spices are very well distributed before we cook it. Heat your skillet on medium for 5 to 7 minutes before adding in your oil. Remember, hot pan, cold oil, a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, and 1 small Vidalia onion. We're going to saute that for 5 minutes before adding our ground meat mixture, making sure we're breaking that up so we form a single layer in the pan and that it can all brown. Next up, tomato paste, a generous teaspoon. Stir it around, mixy. Very nice. Oregano, about a teaspoon or so. If you like more, you can certainly add more. Worcestershire sauce, I'm using the low sodium kind, about 10 dashes or so. Very nice. And the low sodium chicken stock. I'm gonna go once around the pan, about ½ a cup. And we're gonna let this cook down and tighten up, come together in about 10 minutes. Flatbread's ready, time to plate. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed watching the video as much as I enjoyed making it for you. As always, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Instagram, same name as You Eat It, and follow me on Facebook, same name as You Eat It. And remember, cook how you want to cook, eat how you want to eat, pay tribute how you want to pay tribute, eat as you eat it. I'll see you next week.